This is the FEHERTY podcast presented by Farmers Insurance.
Thank you for that thunderous applause. You were obviously expecting somebody else. Yeah, instead, all you get is little old me welcoming you to Season 9 of FEHERTY. That's right. Despite a continuous string of dumpster fires, Golf Channel has somehow invited me back yet again. I guess some people never give up hope. Just like I never gave up pursuing tonight's guest, I wouldn't say I've been stalking Fred Couples, but that's just because I don't agree with the legal definition of stalking. So we're here at Twin Dolphin.
Yeah.
What's your design philosophy?
To have everyone stare at the ocean.
Persistence is not one of my strongest attributes, but I've been trying to get Freddie onto my show since this show began. And here it is, the start of Season 9, and I finally caught up with him in picturesque Cabo San Lucas.
We just wanted to give it beauty and leave it like Cabo. So we've left it kind of deserty, just a real pretty course with what we got.
Freddie, thanks for having us down here at Twin Dolphin, your new golf course here in Mexico. You've managed to weasel out of this interview about 4 times.
I knew you were going to get to that. I didn't think it'd be in the first 5 seconds. And we've tried to set, or I have tried to set this up. You have solidified it, and then I don't want to say canceled, but I'm really excited to do this and to have you down here.
You've been kind of slippery. I'm delighted to have you captured at last.
Yes.
Let's go back to the beginning. Tell me, well, you grew up in Seattle on Beacon Hill, close to the Jefferson Park, your municipal golf course. What kind of a part did that play in your early golf life?
I first grew up on a par 3 course at Jefferson Park. So they had an 18-hole course and a par 3 course. And so as a 9 and 10-year-old, for some reason, I just liked to play the par 3 course better. And then at maybe the age of 11, I got a job at the driving range. So there was a 9-holer, an 18-holer, and a driving range that people would come, and pay to hit golf balls. So it wasn't like now you go and you show up, you play, and you get free balls. There you paid money, so I helped pick the range up at night. Every day in the summer, my mom usually would give me $5 as I got a little older, $3.50 to play the golf course, and then $1.50 for a burger and a Coke. And I would stay there from, she dropped me off at 8 in the morning till 6 at night, and then I'd go home and have dinner, and then come back up and help pick the range up.
Did you ever sneak through the fence?
Oh, I climbed the fence the second round every time. And a lot of times they'd come get me. So my friend Jay and I, we'd go to the 4th hole because that was an easy place to climb a fence. And then they'd sometimes come out and get us, and other times they'd look the other way. But basically, once I started to play in a few junior tournaments and do okay, then they kind of just said, pay once and go.
Is it hyperbole, apocryphal, or the truth that you were banned from using driver on the range?
At what age? Probably 15.
Yeah?
Yeah, because they had built a rec center at the end of it. And I think, honestly, it was probably 280 to the back of the range, but then there was a fence. But it was, all these stories are great, but it's usually with the wind. So I would find the hottest range balls we could, which would sometimes be the newer ones. And obviously with downwinds, we would get in trouble because they knew really who it was. There were only a couple of us that could do it. But that is a story that's true.
You won back-to-back state high school championships. Were you kind of heavily recruited?
I was, but I wouldn't know what heavily recruited is. I had a chance to go down, of all places, to Stanford. I don't know if I could even gone through 1 year of that, but Arizona State, a couple other places. And most of those were come see us, play, we'll watch you and see how you do. And I just didn't have the money to go to California and then to Arizona and play a couple rounds. Coach Williams found out about me through probably a kid that was from Spokane that was on the U of H team, Chris Mitchell. And then he started calling. And then it got to the point where every Sunday night he'd call, and I'd have my mom talk to him. And my mom thought he would be great coach for me to go there. And as it turned out, it was a great school for me to go to. We wanted everyone to see the ocean. And when they're done playing...
Fred and I have much in common. We both played professional golf. We're both ridiculously handsome. Oh, yeah. And we both spent way too much time with Jim Nance. For me, it was at CBS covering golf, and for Freddie, it started in his freshman dorm. You had a very famous roommate at the University of Houston, Jim Nance.
Yes.
I always wondered, was he in the bottom bunk playing with his imaginary microphone?
Well, actually, I had 3 famous roommates. John Horn, who played the tour a little bit,
Yeah.
and Blaine McAllister,
Yeah.
who's won 5 times and is a really, really good player. And then the most famous guy in the room was Jim Nance. So there were several nights he'd come back and he would play us who he'd interview, whether it was Nolan Ryan, Muhammad Ali one night. That was fun for me. I'm a sport nut.
Yeah.
And then it got into once in a blue moon, you know, he'd come in on a little bit of a lesser time and talk about us winning a tournament, interviewing us. And it all happened there.
Freddie was a star at the University of Houston, where he was twice named first-team All-American. But his collegiate career didn't end in glory at the NCAA championships, but rather with the rash decision to turn pro during the summer before his senior year. So you turn pro and enter the Long Beach Queen Mary Open. Was that your first event?
It was. I lost in the U.S. Amateur. I went back to Long Beach. And before school, I wanted to play a little bit, so I went to this golf course. It was called El Dorado. I drove up there, and there was some signs up there about a golf tournament. So I went in, and the gentleman I talked to was Larry Benson. Never forget Larry. And I asked him if I could play in the tournament as an amateur, and he goes, I'm sorry, we have a few amateur qualifyings, and they're already done, but if you want to play as a pro, you can. And we just laughed. And so the next day he said, come out and we'll play. You can play with me in a practice round, which I thought was nice. So I played, and I went in and signed up as a pro. That's the story. Why? I can't even make up anything. I turned pro that practice round.
By accident?
Maybe the greatest thing I ever did,
Yeah.
or maybe the worst thing I ever did. I know it was the greatest thing I ever did.
Yeah.
I won $1,800. I was paired with Mark O'Mara, and I called home Sunday night, and my dad hung up. And I went, wow. And the people I was staying with, they knew my parents very, very well. And they said, yeah, they've known all along. You know, they kept calling school. And so I called back. But my mom, she answered, and I talked to her for quite a while and explained, I don't even know what I'm doing, but I just won $1,800. And I just entered the tour school, which is another story. I borrowed the people's truck that I was staying with, the Jose's. I drove up and stayed in their truck and qualified
How long
there.
after the Queen Mary Open?
It was, well, that would be in our off season, and then the tour school, I think, was in November.
Yeah.
And that was the first qualifying. Then I went to Fresno and played the second one. Mm-hmm. And then Mark O'Mara again. His roommate had missed the cut, so then I went and stayed with him. But the first 3 or 4 days, I stayed in this truck, shaved in the clubhouse. I mean, it's kind of a weird story, but at the time, I had no clue. If I didn't get my tour card, I'd be playing, you know, as a pro. But that's how it turned out.
First win on tour was the '83 Kemper Open at Congressional, right?
Yes.
And it was kind of strange. You were played in the last group, and it finished an hour behind the group in front. What was that about?
Well, I shot 77. T.C. Chin shot 76, and Scott Simpson shot 77 on 18 at Congressional, which is an unreal hole.
Yeah.
I drove it 100 miles down there and hit really a poor wedge, but I ended up having a 3.5 footer to tie. And I'm like, you know, am I more nervous about making this or shooting 77? And I made it to get in this playoff, and it was with Barry Jekyll and Dr. Gil Morgan.
Yeah.
And then the 3 of us, we all tied. And then I won on the second playoff hole on the par 3. I hit a 5-iron to about 2 feet. And if you watch the video, the putt did go in because I have a trophy, but it barely went in. But that was the long, long day, and we all played poor.
Yeah, I remember that round took so long. The golf course was so tough.
We finished an hour after the group in front of us, an hour.
How often did Payne Stewart remind you that he beat you in the Southwest Conference Championship?
Yeah, you got it down. Payne Stewart would remind you of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Payne Stewart, you know, would jab you, but we were very close friends. I thought he was an extremely great player. I liked watching him hit balls because of his swing, which I felt like our swings were not identical, but they were close in the pace of it and how we hit the ball. So we played a little bit, and he's one of a kind. He was one of a kind.
He was. He glued my shoes together at
There
the
you
PGA
go.
Championship.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're not the only guy.
Despite the slow play component of his first victory, Freddie's career on the PGA Tour was turbocharged. A fan favorite and the first American to top the official world golf rankings, he won 15 times on tour. He played in 5 Ryder Cups. And Freddie's casual style was so perfectly suited for the World Cup, the Skins Games, and other off-season events. He was dubbed the King of the Silly Season. He was also twice selected as the PGA Tour's Player of the Year.
It's been an unbelievable year, and because of all my friends, they actually voted me the best player, and thanks a lot.
Fred's biggest moment came in 1992 when he arrived at Augusta National as the world #1, the leading money winner on tour and riding a hot streak that included 2 wins and 2 second-place finishes in the preceding month.
Thank you very much. Now, look, this may come as a shock to you, but I wasn't always the world-class athlete you see in front of you today. When I turned pro, I was a zit-ridden 17-year-old with a very non-threatening 5 handicap. And needless to say, my future in the game did not seem secure. Yet, I managed to scratch and claw my way into the 1992 Masters. Freddie drove down Magnolia Lane in a Mercedes that year, and I was in a 1973 AMC Pacer with a cracked windshield. And one of us left with a green jacket in a Mercedes.
You know, in 92, I imagine one of your concerns was my presence in the field. That was my only Masters.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was the only one I played. You opened with 69, 67, and found yourself a shot back. Were you kind of a believer then?
I'm always a believer in myself. I have a lot of confidence. I don't go around telling you that I'm ready. I see no reason, because I think people know you're ready. And that time, like you said, I had won twice. So I knew, and I loved my pairing on Saturday with Ray. Each day kind of went out there in a few lucky breaks. We got rained out on Saturday, so I got to come out Sunday morning and play 4 holes. I birdied 2 of them. There weren't 30,000 people around. You know, they were all making their way there, so I felt good about that. You know, I played at, I think, 8 o'clock, and I had like a 2:50 tee time, so I went back and slept.
You went back and slept?
Yeah, it was no problem to sleep. I just kind of wasn't a big deal to go play those 4 holes.
I'd like to break the final day into 3 parts. Let's start with 1 through 11. There were some ups and downs.
Yeah. I know all kinds of scores. There's just something about that last round, and I pull-hooked it into the 9th fairway. Beautiful second shot in the green. Didn't pull-hook it, but hooked it into the hazard on 2, made 6. And I fatted an iron on the 3rd hole, and we're going up the 3rd fairway, and Joe, my caddy, looks at me and says, "Will you grab a glove and get in the game?" Like, normally we joke. This was stern, and I hit an 8-iron. So the 3rd hole back then was a 2-iron and a sandwich.
Yeah.
And I hit an 8-iron a foot and made birdie, and then everything just kind of started to settle down and went my way, and then I played a really good round of golf.
Fred was playing in the final pairing with 3rd-round leader Craig Perry.
Craig Perry was struggling. So really the guy that was coming on strong was Ray Floyd. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea how he birdied, but he was on 14, so I'm on 12.
Could you hear the roar?
Oh, the roar was unreal.
With his mentor mounting a charge, Fred had 2 obstacles to overcome in order to secure the green jacket: Ray Floyd and Ray's Creek.
Like everyone, you know, hit it over the bunker. Sounds so easy. Well, I block it, but I hit it solid, and I'm looking at it, and it hit so far down the bank that it didn't pick up any steam, and it just stayed there.
Yeah.
And we're walking up there, and there was a rules official guy coming down, and I'm walking over the bridge, and I'm yelling at him,
"Stay away.
I don't want anyone to breathe near that." I didn't know if it's anchored up on a pillow and it's going to fall in. All I kept thinking about is if I fluffed this chip, I could have hit a driver off this lie.
Yeah.
It's going to hit the hill and roll right back into the water. At that time, I used Max Fly balls, and there was a Max Fly in the water. Oh. So I chipped this up there, and it rolls up a foot, and I scoop the ball out. Same number, a 1, and it's got Woozy's name on it. And my ball should have been an inch or curled up next to his. And that's why people say, "Why'd you scoop it out?" Because you could see it, Max Fly 1. And then I went on. I knew I had, 13 and 15.
And you'd Ray breathing down your